Bandy, and this is my channel Bandy's Books. We're back in my kitchen again today for a new book recipe, and I know that maybe you were looking for this video on Tuesday, but I'm switching things up a little bit this month. I am trying a new format with a couple new videos. You may have seen them earlier in the week. So from now on, my fiction-based book recipes will be on Friday nights. That way you have time over the weekend to watch them since they're a little bit longer, give you some time to digest them and think about them, maybe plan them for your cooking for like the week coming up. So I know a lot of people do their meal planning on Sunday, so I thought maybe this would kind of give you some inspiration for your meals for the upcoming week. So this particular episode is a really special episode for me. The book that I am basing the recipe off of is one of my absolute favorite reads this year. It's so good, and better yet, it has the warm, fuzzy feels to get you in the mood for the holiday season. It's not a holiday season book necessarily, it just has that like warm, fuzzy vibe. It's like a hug from a friend or a cozy sweater. And it also, the dish that we're doing from this book is a good dish for holiday. It is perfect like accompaniment to your Thanksgiving dinner. It would be great for Christmas dinner or any meals in between really. But since Thanksgiving is next week, I thought this was the perfect time to do this video. And the book is The House in the Cerulean Sea by T.J. Klune. If you haven't read this book yet, let me just say, stop what you're doing, go to your nearest bookstore, pick it up and read it. It is so sweet. I'm not even somebody that's like super into just like sweet, warm, feel-good books, but this is just, it's so cute. It is about a social worker who works with magical kids, and he goes to these orphanages basically and monitors the children to make sure that they're not being abused, that the teachers are doing what they're supposed to do, that the kids aren't hurting each other, etc. In this world, children that show magical abilities are considered kind of like a threat to society, so they're monitored by this department of magical monitoring basically. So he's a social worker. He ends up at this house in the Cerulean Sea, which is a special school for a select special group of children. And let me just say that the character building, the world building, it's so rich and everything's just so interesting. This was like a system that I hadn't really seen before, and I just loved it. So I guess that's enough rambling about the book because we're really here about the recipe. So let's talk about the food. Today we're going to be doing scalloped potatoes, and let's see where that comes up here in this book. There was another table set at the other end of the kitchen. This one looked more used than the one in the formal dining room. There was a slightly worn tablecloth spread out, weighted down by place settings. 3 plates and sets of silverware were on one side. There was 4 place settings on the other side, though one didn't have a spoon or a fork. And there were settings at either end of the table. Candles were lit and flickering. In the center, there was food stacked high. He saw scalloped potatoes and bread and some sort of meat he couldn't recognize. There were leafy greens. The tomatoes that Lucy had been chopping looked like red beetles in the candlelight. A feast, he'd been told, in his honor. Linus wondered if it was poisoned. So, there you have it. There's a feast in Linus's honor upon his arrival at the school, and one of the dishes were scalloped potatoes. So, in honor of this book that I loved so much, we're gonna go ahead and make those scalloped potatoes today. So let's get started. So the equipment we're gonna need today is a cutting board and a knife. If you have a box grater with a slicing portion, or if you have like a mandolin, either of those would be fine. I am using my Le Creuset enamel dish, but you can use just a regular baking dish or a cast iron skillet if you'd like. I'm also going to be using my cast iron skillet just to saute off some onions, but again, it doesn't have to be cast iron. You can just use whatever saute pan you have. I just happen to have that handy. So a saute pan, a dish to bake, and cutting board, knife, and a grater or a mandolin. Okay, so for ingredients, we're gonna need some potatoes. I'm using red potatoes today. You could use Yukon Golds or whatever potatoes really, but this is probably my preference is the red potatoes. We're gonna need some heavy whipping cream, an onion, some shredded cheddar cheese, some butter, thyme, pepper, and a little bit of salt. ahead and cook the onions real quick. So I'm gonna put just a little bit of butter in, let that melt. And then we're gonna go ahead and caramelize the onions, just very lightly. I suppose you could put the onions in raw. However, I think that caramelizing them gives them a nice natural sweetness and a little more depth to the dish. I know I always talk about depth. And honestly, that's the trick to cooking, is doing these little tedious things that enhance the dishes. So instead of just throwing the raw onions into the scalloped potatoes and letting them cook in there and giving the dish a really strong oniony flavor, I prefer to just slowly cook them down until they're nice and light brown. We're not going to go really, really deep brown, just a nice light brown, and they're nice and soft, and that's going to sweeten them up so that way it doesn't overpower the potatoes and the cheese and everything else going into the dish. We want it to complement and meld together. Okay, so first things first, there's two ways you can do the potatoes. You can do them on a box grater like this, which works okay. Kind of gives you these like broken, jagged pieces. This isn't really my preference personally. I will just cut these by hand, but I just wanted to demonstrate it in case that's what you decide to do. So we're just gonna slice nice thin slices. If you have a mandolin, that's usually the easiest way to do it. I just do not have a mandolin at home at the moment. So as you can see, we want nice thin pieces like this. The reason is that if you do them too thick, they're gonna take forever to cook. This way, you know, they're gonna cook a little more evenly and a little more quickly. Okay, so we've got our onions nicely browned. We've got our potatoes all sliced up. So now we're gonna start assembling our dish. So I'm gonna take some of these nicely sliced potatoes and we're just gonna start layering them along the dish. So I kind of like to do like a double layer. Some people do lots of like really, really thin little layers. I think that for me, it gets like a little too gloopy if I just do a single layer and then cheese in between each of it. I mean, I do like it cheesy. Trust me, this is a dish that's meant to be cheesy. But I just feel like it gives it a little more textural balance if there's like two layers. So we've got those are our two layers there of potatoes. We're just gonna put a little bit of salt. Go easy on the salt because with all the layers of it, you don't need a ton on each layer or else it'll end up really, really, really salty. Same thing with the pepper, just a light sprinkle of pepper or else it'll end up really peppery. And same with the thyme, just a very light dusting, or in the case that you're using fresh thyme, just a couple thyme leaves. And we're gonna throw down some of our caramelized onions, just a few. And then we're gonna sprinkle in like a handful of cheese. Okay, maybe just a tiny bit more. So there's layer one. We're gonna build this kind of like a lasagna. So think of our potatoes as our noodles. So we're gonna start, and I just kind of layer the potatoes in like a circle to make sure that it's, you know, nice and even. And then try to make sure you're separating all the potatoes as well, so you don't end up with like really big thick pieces. Okay. Okay. So just like on the first layer, I like to do 2 rounds just to kind of, like I said, give it a little more texture. I've tried it with cheese between each and every single layer, and it kind of just, for me, turns into like a cheese soup with a couple pieces of potatoes in there. So this, like I said, gives it a little more balance. So just like on the last layer, just a tiny bit of salt. Don't go crazy with it. Light dusting of some thyme. Don't go crazy with that either. And a couple cracked pepper. Some more onions. If you're wanting to kind of get this done a little bit ahead of time, you could actually caramelize the onions, you know, the night before. You could slice the potatoes the night before, and just, if you slice the potatoes ahead of time, soak them in water. If you leave them out of water like this, they'll brown quite a bit, but keeping them in water will let them, you know, be cut but not spoil. Okay, cheese. So we're gonna do another layer of potatoes. This is like one of my favorite side dishes. You cannot go wrong with cheesy potatoes. I guess unless you're lactose intolerant. In that case, then I feel really, really bad for you, because this is such a delicious dish. I suppose you could substitute soy cheese. For me, it's not really the same thing. And then, you know, you'd still have the cream to contend with. So I don't know if there's really honestly a good substitute here. Okay. And then we're going to leave those last pieces for the top. Okay. Again, with the onions. Tiny bit of seasoning. Okay. Light dusting of thyme. Couple cracks of pepper. And more cheese. This is definitely not a low-calorie dish either. But then, really, what at Thanksgiving time is, this is a treat. And that's the way that I see this. Instead of guilt-tripping myself about the calories that I'm consuming, I just say, you know what, I don't eat like this 99% of the year. This is like a special thing for Thanksgiving and Christmas. I'm just going to eat it and enjoy it. And then come January 1st, I'm going to get back on to eating clean and healthy. Well, I guess I shouldn't say clean, because this isn't dirty food or anything like this. This is a nice homemade dish. And, you know, we're using good, healthy products. It's just, you know, got a lot of dairy in it. And I'm all for not like shaming people for eating food. You know, I feel like calling food clean and dirty kind of gives the wrong impression that there's like things that are inherently bad and things that are inherently good. I don't necessarily agree with that philosophy. But I guess what I mean is that I allow myself to eat my holiday meals guilt-free with the butter and the cream and the cheese. And then when it comes to January and February, I get back to eating, you know, healthier, a lot more vegetables and whole grains and a lot less dairy and things like that. So I suggest if you're going to make this, make it and enjoy it. Don't feel bad about the calories in it. You know, just treat yourself and then move forward from it. Okay. So we've got our onions. Same thing as we've been doing last little bit. We're going to give it some seasoning. Pepper. And tonight is not Thanksgiving here. It's a couple weeks before. But we're doing a roasted chicken for dinner, and we're going to do some Brussels sprouts on the side. I've actually got the chicken in the oven already cooking. And we're just going to top this here. Okay, so to finish this off before we put it in the oven, we're just going to open up our cream here. So you definitely want to use heavy whipping cream in this case. If you try to use half and half or milk, it is going to be, it's not going to be good. It'll get like really, really liquidy and then it'll curdle. Heavy cream is going to thicken nicely while it cooks. So that's why we're going with this. Okay. So we're just going to kind of let this soak in. All right, and then we're gonna pop the lid back on top of this, and into the oven we're gonna go. Okay, so we're gonna pop this into the oven at 375 degrees. I'll have the Celsius conversion in the description. So in that goes, and we have a whole roasted chicken that we're gonna do with it that looks like it's just about ready to come out. Okay, so we're gonna give our scalloped potatoes about 30 minutes and then we're gonna check them. If the potatoes are getting nice and cooked, we're gonna remove the lid and let the top brown. If they're still a little crispy, we'll put the lid back on and let them cook a little bit longer. So with movie magic, we'll see you in about 30 minutes. All right, so it's been about 35 minutes. We're gonna go ahead and check out our scalloped potatoes. You can see my roasted chicken is done to go with them. So you're gonna be careful, this oven is really, really hot and this casserole dish is heavy. Oh yeah, look at that. So we're just gonna take a knife and check the doneness. So these potatoes are still a little bit crunchy. This is gonna need just a little bit longer. I'm gonna go ahead and put the lid back on. We're gonna give it another 15 minutes or so. Back in 15 minutes to check again. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and check these potatoes one more time, make sure that they're tender, and if they are tender, we're gonna go ahead and return this uncovered to brown up a little bit more. Oh yeah, this looks so good. Okay, yeah, that's where those should be. The knife should insert easily through the potatoes. You can see it's starting to brown up on the sides, get nice and crunchy. So we're just gonna go ahead and pop this back in for another 10 minutes with the lid off so that the top of this can get a little bit of color and some of the liquid can simmer out. Okay, so we'll be back in about 10 minutes. All right, so it smells like our gratin or our scalloped potatoes are done. So I'm gonna go ahead and pull them out. Don't be alarmed about the browned edges, that's just from the cream splashing up. You can see how nice and brown and golden it is on top. This is exactly what we're looking for. So I'm gonna let this cool for just a second and I'm gonna try my first bite. And then I'm starving, it's pretty late and this is dinner time. So we're gonna go ahead and wrap up real quick and that way I can finally get my dinner. All right, so I am so hungry, I decided to just go ahead and take my first bite straight from the pan. It looks so good, all bubbly. I'm gonna give this a quick blow because I don't want to burn my mouth. The cheese is all gooey, the cream's nice and set, the onions have like melted into the food. Oh, damn, that's good. That is the perfect dish for Thanksgiving. Perfect dish if you're gonna do like a roast chicken or turkey. Really the perfect dish for anything. If you haven't made scalloped potatoes before, you should definitely try it. This is it. So good, even the dog's coming in to try to get some. And again, this recipe was inspired by the book The House in the Cerulean Sea by T.J. Klune. The scalloped potatoes show up in the feast, the welcome feast for Linus when he first arrives at the house. They serve theirs with a roasted meat and a salad. I'm doing mine with chicken and Brussels sprouts. You could do it with whatever you want at home. Like I said, perfect dish for Thanksgiving or for future holiday meals. I hope that you're gonna find these scalloped potatoes and this book both as comforting as I found them. I really love both and I hope that you'll try it out at home. So again, thank you for joining me. My name is Bandy. This is my channel Bandy's Books and this has been another book recipe. If you want to check out more of my book recipes, check out this link up here. You'll see a playlist. Other than that, I'll see you in the next video. Bye. How are the potatoes?
It's almost 10:30 p.m. and I'm having dinner. Normally I don't have dinner at this time. So they're good.
Even the dog is waiting for some.
He's waiting for his treat.
This is a behind the scenes look. So when I'm doing my recipes over here, I've got Gibson waiting to see if anything falls on the floor, and Oz waiting for us to be done filming so he can eat dinner.
And I can test it in first hand.
Did it live up to the hype? Cool.